Understanding efficiency and effectiveness is the key to financial success. This week on the Extreme Personal Finance Show. Hey everyone, my name is Chris. Welcome to the Extreme Personal Finance Show. Joining me, my co-host this week, Dan. Dan, how you doing, man?
Doing well, Chris. How you been?
Excellent. I've been okay, man. There's a lot of stuff going on. We're getting into the holiday season. I'm starting to feel it. I
Oh,
have
yeah.
I have mocha peppermint creamer in my coffee today.
Nice.
So I'm getting in the holiday spirit. I
Did you
ordered
get that
brand
at
new.
Aldi?
Yes, it is from Aldi. You're
Okay, I
absolutely
got some
right.
today, so that's why.
Yep. Um, interesting thing. I also ordered brand new Christmas lights. So the first time in like 20 years, I have new Christmas lights. Um,
Exciting.
and I'm not going to say that like I'm keeping up with the Joneses, but here's the thing, Dan.
Mm,
A couple of my neighbors on my block, well, they have these brand new permanent LED lights that you program with your phone, and they're all like fancy and awesome. And of course, I'm like, well, I got to be as awesome as them, right? So I went ahead and I ordered 100 feet
yeah.
of those lights, and hopefully they'll be here by the weekend. It's supposed to be like in the 50s, so I can get those
Yeah.
lights installed.
Yeah, that's actually what you just mentioned is something that's keeping me from quite feeling like it's the holiday season. There's still way too much green out
It
for
is. Yes,
mid-November. It's like, why is my grass? I mean, I like that my grass is green, but it's very strange that it's green when it's after Veterans Day now. It's
that's
just
right. That's
bizarre.
right.
So
That's right.
it'll get there though.
Yeah,
I
I
have
know.
to I have to ask with the lights.
Yeah.
Um, can they be any color so
Yes.
that you
Yeah.
can
There's a
just put them up and just change them for whatever holiday it is?
Yep, whatever holiday. I'll probably have Vikings colors on the Sunday games, and I'll do any holiday. They're up
Perfect.
all the time. I know, like the first neighbor that had them up last season, again, like throughout any other time, he just has them on a low, like just soft white, and it's just
Hmm.
lights up his front yard. It's really nice. And I noticed that today, the guy right across from the street, across from me, he was out there playing with all of his different lighting combinations. I don't know what the LED combination, like 16 million colors or something goofy, right? And it was funny. I talked to him and he's like, yeah, they make the app and programming because you can have them like chase each other. You can change the color. You can have them move and migrate, all these different patterns. And he's like, they make it actually too complicated, but it's a community. So you can actually go and find someone else that already built a program to do a particular thing and just say, copy this program. And that's what he did for like the 4th of July and like other thing, like the Vikings ones that he did on Sunday. He just
Yeah.
copied someone else's program. So
That's one way to do it.
yeah, so
Still like an artist.
that's right, that's right. So I'm looking forward to this weekend getting some holiday lights. Maybe I'll start getting in the spirit. The thing is, I'm hosting our family like Thanksgiving slash like our family. We often get together and have fish fries a couple times a year, and
Okay.
so I'm hosting our Thanksgiving after Thanksgiving this year. But we're also going to have a giant fish fry, so I want to have all my holiday decorations up prior to that. So I'm kind of scrambling. I know I got 3 weeks left,
Gotcha.
but I'm scrambling.
Wow, 3 weeks turns into 3 hours somehow really
It
fast.
it does. It does. Awesome. Well, hey, I'm really excited to kind of jump into this discussion today because you had mentioned, hey, a really good conversation would be kind of to talk about the differences between being efficient in something and being effective in something. And that really, I was like, gosh, that's a really good topic because it can relate to so many different things in life, but also it can really relate to personal finance. And it's something that I often focus on one rather than the other. So I think maybe this is just kind of my kind of, systems engineering brain. And I mean, this goes back to my last job, but even like what I did for 18 years prior was, I worked in production as an engineer and I was always trying to save time, right? Save time, save clicks. Everything was always around efficiency. We rarely talked about how effective you were in that particular thing. And so
Okay.
that's why I thought this was a really interesting topic to discuss. Because one of the things that often people think about, they kind of use the terms interchangeably, like they're the same thing. They're
Absolutely.
not.
I don't want to say too much because I really want to hear from your point of view first,
Mhm.
because I've noticed as I've thought about it more and more that especially when it comes down to personal finance, kind of it, it for me almost gets wrapped down to just one thought, if you will. So
Interesting.
I'll let you kind of start a little bit first, and then we'll build off of there because I feel like you have more varied thoughts than I do. Maybe mine are very
Well,
distilled.
yeah. Well, I think again, I was very much focused on being more efficient with things, right? So
Yeah.
how can I be more efficient with my finances? Meaning, I'm going to make sure I'm doing things on auto pay. I'm going to auto contribute to my retirement plans. I'm going to, put automation plans in place. I'm going to do these things to build a more efficient workflow with my
Mhm.
finances. But I rarely kind of pause to say, but is that the right thing to do to be the most effective with my finances? And
Right.
so that's kind of where I fell apart. And I think it's important where if we can build this harmony or this balance of being efficient and streamline our finances, but also being effective to make sure those processes are working towards our goals. And
Mhm.
that's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear that one thought that you have that's going to change the world.
Well, I don't know if change the world is the right way to put it, but I think for me, when I think about it in general, but then when it comes down to personal finances, and kind of to build a little bit off of what you were talking about from like engineering, right? So engineering tends to be, even though there are humans who are engineers, it's kind of very rigid in its thinking, right?
There's rules. You follow the
Right.
rules.
Whereas human beings are messy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where we don't, most of us don't really just follow all these rules in all things that we do without fail. It's just like, well, I think this way, except on that instance when I think that way. And
Oh,
how do you reconcile that these two things are the same at the same time with the
there, there
same
can be
person?
there can be exceptions or there can be if then kind of logic in place.
Yeah, a little bit, sure. Um, but so then for me, when I think through it, when it comes down to personal finance, is we can build some efficiencies in order to be effective in a goal, but we will also often have competing goals that don't necessarily support one another directly.
Hmm.
So, for instance, let's just, we've talked about Camp FI and the fire movement and things like
Hmm.
that a couple of times. So, with the idea of, well, I want to be as efficient as I can in order to effectively, let's say, we're going to set the bar really, really high just to illustrate the point, to retire by the time I'm 28,
Hmm.
right? Which is great. But if you also say, well, I want to make sure that I'm able to travel and take some time off and spend time with my family and do these things. At some point, you may not be able to do the things efficiently to make that retirement by 28 goal if you're also wanting to travel and see your family and do these things and have a nice car or a souped up apartment or whatever things might be important to you. You can only have one of these things at the same time,
Hmm.
right? And so, what might be efficient for one of these goals is neither efficient nor effective for another one. So, then trying to figure out how you marry up and how can I get a little bit of both of these. So, you might end up having to pick, say, an investment strategy that is, or a contribution amount that isn't as effective,
Hmm.
but it's efficient in order for you to live a life that is both a life well lived and getting you towards an eventual early retirement goal. Just being willing to look at something and be like, is this the most efficient thing I could be doing? Well, it might not be, but it's going to be more effective in
Right.
allowing you to basically just say have a life worth lived. You know, you have some financial stability and you enjoy getting up every day and going doing whatever job it is you have. And it's more effective in that way, but it's not as efficient as it could be for one of those goals. There's a little bit of rambling on my end, but
Yeah,
I
no,
hope
no,
that kind of made sense.
no, yeah, yeah, I'm tracking. So really sometimes that's when you might have to really kind of determine which one of those goals may take priority at a given
Right.
time. And then
Yep.
obviously throughout your journey, those goals can change,
Mm-hmm.
but you may have to again modify or change or change the priority of your goals based on what you can do to be more efficient versus are you more effective.
Right.
So it's really looking at what those goals are.
I think another area where it kind of comes up in all this is when we think about what is our like our investment allocation, right? So to amass, generally speaking, you know, off market oddities notwithstanding, generally speaking, you know, being all invested in all equities all the time, it's going to be the most effective way or the most efficient way to get you to where you want to be, right? But if it's something that causes you stress because of market swings or causes you to um, get in and out of the market because you're nervous about whatever might be going on in the world. And so now you're uninvested and then you lock in your losses, which are just paper losses, right? Now it's making your strategy is not effective because you're
Mm-hmm.
having to granted it's because you're abandoning your strategy, but that strategy you had is not going to be effective to get you your goal because you can't stick to it. So even though it might have been more efficient to do it that way, it's not effective in getting you to your goal.
Got it. So it's kind of like, kind of like what you just talked about, how sometimes efficiency and effectiveness can be like at odds with one
Mm-hmm.
another, right? It's kind of like a slider, this balance, right? So like you could automate your savings, or you could be really, really good at being efficient with your like day-to-day finances, but it may not have a good strategy to be effective in your long-term goals.
Right.
Got
Yep.
it. Got it.
Or let's say that thinking through something you mentioned earlier with a lot of automation, right? So if you've built something that's so efficient that you now stop paying attention, and what if your your goals do change a little bit, right? But you're not really thinking about it because that part of your brain says, "Nope, I've got everything automated. I'm just letting it do its thing, and it's going to get me from point A to point B." But you forget to go back and check in on that
Mhm.
and make sure that it's like, okay, is point B still where I'm trying to get to? You know, because you just automated everything to just assume that it's done. But
Right.
now you still, even though it's automated, you still need to pay attention to it and still go and look at it and make sure that it's doing what you mean for it to do.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we kind of go through and again, there'll be in the show notes, there'll be a blog post that we kind of talk about it, and we talk about there's an area there where we talk about efficient investing, but also effective investing. And one of the things of being effective is to keep an eye on things, is to review those things and your strategy to make sure you're making changes to stay on track with those long-term goals. That's part of being effective.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. That's awesome. And I think one of the things too is, we often, I think, like I said, why I like this topic, I think we often spend so much time talking about being efficient. We talk about setting it and forgetting it, automate contributions, automate, all of the bill pay, automate all this stuff. We talk about keeping it simple. We talk about using low cost index funds, ETFs, like all the things, but we kind of fail to, I guess, help educate. Not only should you be efficient, but you also have to be effective in reaching your goals. And I think sometimes it's like, God, it's almost like I wish we could have, you know what? I hate the commercial for Drive Time. Have you ever seen this commercial with Drive Time where you can get like real time quotes on like your car payment? It's
On your
like,
car payment?
yeah, yeah. It's like
Mm-mm.
great commercial because I really don't know what they do, right? All I know is I don't like the ad. But no, it's like look at I can move this slider around and it gives me what my down payment should be and what my then monthly payment is. And the user can move the slider around to make a balance that fits for them.
Okay.
And I hate the commercial because everyone's cheering and they're like, "Yay, I'm doing this thing." And I'm just like,
Shop for cars and customize your own payments with no credit hit.
Look, there's a slidey thingy. I'm changing my own payments. I feel strong.
oh, it's so annoying. But anyway, um, but it's almost like that's kind of like what we need here, right? We need some sort of slider that you can like move back and forth to say, okay, this is efficient and effective enough to reach the goals or whatever, right?
Yeah. Well, I think another wrinkle in this whole thing. I was speaking with somebody last week, I think, talking about complicated life situations and issues, and as you do. And one of the things they mentioned to me is kind of a rhetorical question, but it's like, well, trying to think through what is the right thing to
Mm,
do, right? And I paused and I was like, well, I don't like one of the words in your question. I don't like the word the.
mm,
Why you're saying what is the right thing to do?
sure.
But why is there only one right thing to do? And I think admitting and understanding that there
I
can be
like that.
multiple right things to do. Thank you. But I think the same thing happens in our, the financial side of life. We get so wound up on trying to figure out what is the right thing I need to do in order to do this. It's like there are many right things that you can do, and you just need to do one and be okay with maybe adjusting it later on, and potentially maybe finding out that it wasn't the one you wanted to stick with, and you wanted to change it, do something else. That doesn't mean that you were doing something bad or wrong. It was still a right thing to do, but
Right.
just in this iteration of the multiverse, it was just not the one you wanted to do long term. So switch it up. But I think
Do you
sometimes we just get wrapped up too much and thinking there's only one way.
totally? Well, and do you feel as though that people can sometimes get mixed up around, they think they're being effective or they think they're being efficient. Um, and that can lead to like wasting time or resources, or they kind of get mixed up. And so why it's kind of better to talk about understanding a balance of both for your financial habits. Do you think that like how can we help, I guess, what are some actions that people can take to better understand um, what steps to take to be efficient with their finances, but also effective?
So if let me say this back to you, make sure I'm understanding it
Hmm.
correctly. Is it we'll spend maybe too much time trying to make sure we're being one of the two,
Yeah,
that a lack of taking some kind of action means we're being neither?
I think status
Is
quo
that
bias is one that people often do, right?
sure?
But they feel as though, which again, not making a choice is indeed also making a choice.
Right. Yeah.
And
So it's interesting. So I was actually at an event today at the local high school, where it was kind of like this welcome to reality test drive. What is the real world like, right? And it was
yeah, I,
interesting.
I
So
saw you made a post about that. That sounds interesting.
it was interesting. It was certainly better than students not getting any exposure. But at the same time, when you sit down in front of me and I have 5 minutes to talk to you about savings and investing,
Right.
it's kind of like, all right, I'm just going to throw a lot of stuff at you. And I felt toward the end of it, I felt bad for the first maybe 10 students that sat down in front of me, because then I started to find my groove of, okay, this is what I would want to try and impart to you in this brief moment of time that we
Yeah.
have, right? Um, so after one of the students was trying to ask some clarifying questions or whatnot, it's just like, all right, here's what you need to do. Here's what you would do in this scenario. A, make sure you're saving. I don't really care how much it is at this point. Just be
Hmm.
saving and you'll figure out the rest after that. And B, make sure it's invested. If you at least do those things and you're all up in your head trying to figure out what's the right investment to pick, or what's
Hmm.
the right amount to save, that will get ironed out as you go along, right? Especially for someone who's 17, 18, 19, right?
God, but it's so great that you're having those discussions at that age.
Yeah. So, but it's just like, just be saving and then make sure that the ones that are in your retirement accounts or your brokerage accounts or whatever, just make sure that it's actually also invested. Just do that.
Yep.
And keep doing that. And odds are you'll probably be okay. Check back in 25 years old, 26-year old, make sure it's like, is it tweaked just so how you might want it? Great. That's perfect. But at a young age, just be saving and just be investing and don't overthink it. And it seemed to be like, oh yeah, okay, I can do that. I don't need to worry about all the 70 different accounts and the
Right.
8,000 different ticker symbols they can do. And oh my gosh, it gets not complicated, but complex,
Yep.
maybe, so fast, right? So it's like, don't burden yourself with all that. Save, invest, two
Yep.
things, and then just go do that.
Awesome.
So I think that would be an action thing people can take is just if they're feeling overwhelmed, break it down. Do those two things.
Yep. And go find someone like Dan. I guess in the end too, again, we want to also mention that, you know, don't hesitate to reach out to a financial advisor, a coach, a counselor, sometimes to have someone else that you can talk through to build some sort of plan, at least point you in the right direction.
Yeah,
Right.
and don't be hesitant to do it because those people that are like us that want to talk about these things, we are desperately seeking other people to talk to us about it because
Yeah.
it's nice to be able to give back when we didn't learn a lot of this stuff until we were a lot older. So being able to make sure that when we wish we knew this better in our teens and 20s, then helping other people who are in their teens or 20s start to understand it. It's rewarding for us just as much as it is to for them to be in a better spot and for us to know that we had part in that. So please
That's
don't
awesome.
hesitate.
No, that's awesome. And thank you for doing that. That volunteering at the high school. That's pretty rad.
Yeah, it was a good experience, and it was also nice to see there's a good bit of volunteers there. So a lot of other people who are trying to do the same thing, and just making sure these students are heading in the right direction. Right.
That's awesome. So as we wrap up today, I think one of the last things I want to talk about, if there's one thing you take away from today's episode, is think about achieving financial harmony, and that's where you can use efficiency to streamline the financial processes, but also use effectiveness to make sure your financial processes are working towards your goals. And
Love it.
so, again, we really appreciate you guys listening. Please, we really would appreciate you sharing this with anybody that you think would find value. We really do appreciate it. Make sure you like, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and also on YouTube. And again, this is Chris. And who are you, Dan?
I am Dan. I'm Dan
Oh.
Dan.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Extreme Personal Finance Show. See ya.